Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss Labour's proposal to allow workers to request a 4-day working week. Now, to be clear, because that can mean two different things, this specific proposal is to allow workers to request a compression of their hours into fewer days. So they'd still work the same number of hours, being 4 days rather than 5. We're not actually talking just reducing their hours as well. There is another 4-day working week argument that's going on as well. That's a separate issue. And this is something employers can do right now, of course. In fact, I've had friends who've actually done this many years ago. And I often wonder why more businesses don't. Perhaps it doesn't occur to them, perhaps it just seems like too much of a hassle for lazy middle managers who don't always care about the productivity of the overall business. But why would the Tories oppose the idea? After all, they championed the notion of flexible working in their winning 2019 manifesto. Well, let's consider the benefits to businesses. We may find a clue in that. I mean, some of the benefits cited by Labour include requiring less childcare on the part of the employee. If we had enough childcare capacity, you might argue this could be a hit to the childcare industry, but we don't. So in reality, this would actually just help more people access work. The Tories were spending a lot of the last few years whining about the difficulties of getting people into work. Well, flexible working patterns reduce barriers and so increase access, which means you will increase the number of people who can get into work. It should be in the interest of any government, Labour or Conservative, to want to encourage that. For the worker, it would also mean 4 days commute instead of 5. Some people travel quite a long way, spend a lot of time travelling. Again, with a limited transport network, both public and private, reducing the number of times that many workers need to actually travel. It won't be all workers, remember. We're only talking about the ones where this would be feasible, but it could still be a significant number. And if you think about the congestion we get just before and just after office hours, would help ease that pressure. It would be good for the workers because they would spend less on travel. They'd be spending 20% less time on travel at least. And it might be better than that because if this could take off on a large enough scale, you could effectively spread out the times when people are heading into work. Instead of it being a 9 to 5 working day for like almost everyone, it might be 9 to 5 for those workers who can't realistically compress hours into fewer days, like teachers, or don't want to. But for some others, it could be 9 till 7, or it might be 8 till 6, or even 7 in the morning till 5. The inherent flexibility in the system means that, especially for large employers, because we've mostly been talking about large employers, the actual working times don't have to be so prescriptive, meaning that pressure on roads and rail can be eased. And if this took off in a big way, not only would workers only need to commute on 4 days instead of 5, but the actual journey time could be shorter for each of those if that congestion is eased a little. Of course, all of those benefits are for the workers. What about the businesses? Well, if you have workers in for fewer days, even at the same hours, then your premises are in use for more hours overall. Because you're going to be, instead of having like an 8-hour day, you have like a 10-hour day or 11-hour day sometimes. But they'll still be in use all of those days because it won't be the case that all of your workers will say work from Monday to Thursday. Some will do Tuesday to Friday, or they might do Monday, Tuesday, and then have Wednesday off and then do Thursday, Friday. But because you'll have the same number of full-time equivalent employees, it means mathematically speaking, if you're going to have your premises in use for more hours over the same number of days, then you need less space in those premises, depending on the type of work, of course. And this might be the first clue as to why the Tories would oppose it. It's the same reason many oppose working from home. It's the same thing. So if you imagine, let's just imagine a clerical job, like an office-based job. You need a desk and a computer. That's where your worker is. So if you've got people working longer over fewer days, then you can hot desk more with your employees. It means you need less office space because you need fewer desks. Because at any one time, there'll be fewer employees at those desks, even though you're getting the same hours from them overall. And it means you're still paying for that office in the evening when it's not being used. Well, now it might be used, or early in the morning, now it might be used. What it means is you don't then need as much office space because you need fewer desks, less office space. So demand for the office space goes down nationally, meaning that private landlords who supply the office rents may not be able to charge as much. And I often say that the Conservative Party effectively exists to promote the interests of billionaires, but they are also full of landlords. A lot of Tory MPs are landlords of both homes and offices. And it's been pointed out at the moment, there is at the moment now, a Labour landlord, big landlord, who's now a Labour MP, who it seems some of his properties are not being kept in the best conditions, in fact, quite appalling conditions. But it's also been pointed out, but this shouldn't have been allowed because legislation was presented to Parliament some years ago now, 2015 or 2016 or something, and that would have stopped this, that would have made landlords much more legally responsible for the quality of their housing. And it was Conservative MPs who voted against it. Why? Because a lot of Conservative MPs are landlords of both homes and offices. This is why Sunak backtracked on his party's promise to ban no-fault evictions, for example. Too many of his MPs were landlords. They'd promised to do it. It was a manifesto promise to do it, but they didn't do it because their MPs were landlords and they threatened to rebel and Sunak was too weak. So in the end, it was left to Labour to do that. So anything that might encourage businesses to realise that it can do the same work with smaller or fewer premises, something that would save them a lot of money, will be opposed by the Tories because that money saved is money not going into the pockets of their landlord chums and MPs. Other benefits for businesses will include easier recruitment. I mean, it's simple. The more flexible your working practices, the more likely you are to appeal to a wider pool of prospective employees. You know, if you put out 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, there might be some people who'd be really good for the job go, oh, but I can't do Thursdays. But you put it out, but there's the option of flexible working, so you do 4 days but more hours, and they might go, well, that'll allow me to have that Thursday off to do this thing. Great. It means you're more likely to have the option of hiring someone with better skills or a better work ethic, but someone who needs that flexible working. That increases productivity at no greater cost. Obviously, some businesses, especially small businesses, are not going to be able to accommodate this. That's fine. The proposal is not to force businesses to allow it, but to make sure that they offer it if it's reasonably possible. It won't be for some businesses. It won't be for some jobs, just as been the case with previous flexible working legislation under the previous Labour government. You always get this resistance to it. But you notice that the Tories don't abolish them when they come to power. And that is because, guess what? They work. The Tories almost never implement better working practices, partly because there's too much internal self-interest opposed to it, partly because of their belief that government shouldn't actually do anything. But once they're in place, they tend not to abolish them either because they see the productivity benefits. The major blind spot they have in this regard is unions. It was a recent piece in the Financial Times explaining how actually strong unions are good for the economy, but you won't convince a Tory of that. But other working practices are usually safe once implemented by Labour. The Tories will always strangle the economy when in power, but it does tend to be accidental rather than on purpose. They're just idiots. But I'd be willing to bet that the Tories' reported opposition to this proposal stems from the fact that it means making better use of premises for businesses, which means demand for those premises eases. Almost any progressive business practice opposed by the Tories often has its roots in their interests in batting for landlords. But none of this is a concern for Labour. They've got one landlord? The proposals don't force businesses to agree to this compression of working days if they clearly don't have the capacity to do it. But where they do, it is a way of improving the work-life balance for workers, reducing costs for businesses, boosting productivity, helping more people into work, and making Tory business property landlords very unhappy. So benefits all round, really. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.